Hello and welcome to today's video. I thought it was time to do some book content, probably because it's a while since I've done a full-on books video. So this is a book haul, as they say on YouTube. And really, it's been, I think, nearly 2 months. I did one just after Christmas. So this is sort of what I've been reading, what I've dug out to read from, piles of stuff I have yet to read, what I've bought recently from work, what I've got second hand, all sorts of sources. I get some things free with my job. I get a large discount. We have a loyalty scheme as well. So I've got quite a lot. So I am very much making videos at the moment which reflect my current interest in my reading. Now, as you know, on this channel, we do all sorts of things. And I like to think really of Outlaw Bookseller as being rather like the new BBC 4, run by somebody who has got an agenda which is about ideas and not essentially what's commercial. Because you start a YouTube channel, and the idea is that if you want to make money on it, you do one thing, you do it with really high production values, you focus on that one thing, you've researched the market, you get out, you do it. I'm not like that. I'm more interested in the margins and the edges. So I thought, what's the channel going to be about? I can't just do books. I'll get bored with it's just books. I can't just do music. I'll get bored if it's just music. I can't. So I do all sorts of things. So if you look at Outlaw Bookseller as rather like BBC 4, except if BBC 4 was a little bit more experimental, they do some good stuff, but they do some embarrassing stuff as well, don't they? So there's the sort of things you get on BBC 4, culture, travel, what have you. And somebody made a comment that they thought I was a real visionary. And I think visionaries, I don't think I am. I think visionaries are a word that's bandied about. And these days, it seems to be used a lot for people who have their own ideas which maybe don't fit into the existing system. There is more sort of varied content to come. There's more rock and roll to come for the regular viewers who watch the Hawkwind, Stranglers. I'm starting to do more Japan stuff, and there'll be more science fiction to come, more psychogeography and out and about stuff. Some more things on Pontypridd, my hometown. I am looking at sort of getting to do some interviews soon. Now that COVID's receding, I hope to be interviewing some writers and hopefully some rock stars. He said laughingly, there'll be more about travel in the West Country, Wales, and the Amalfi Coast in Italy, which I love. I found some archive footage of that as well. Some people have asked why I'm not shooting in front of the bookcases at the moment. Well, it's because I've got a huge old mattress in front of them. We just bought a new mattress. We need to get the old one clear of the way. And it's like trying to get anything taken away these days. You have to wait for ages because everything's behind because of COVID and what have you. So we'll have a look now at some books and we'll go from there. First of all, just a couple of things I wanted to mention, especially for Stranglers fans who've been waiting for me to do a video about Victor Hugo's Toilers on the Sea, inspiration for Hugh Cornwell's song that he wrote with the Stranglers, Toiler on the Sea from Black and White. I think JJ wrote the basic sort of melody and what have you, and recorded that first, and I think Hugh then wrote the lyrics and what have you. So I have finally got a new copy. I've got to read it yet, so that will be coming. So thanks for your patience. I'll probably do another Stranglers video in the meantime, and I'm going to do a huge one about Rattlesnake Edgicus because the 45th anniversary is coming up for that. One for recent subscribers from Wales, from my hometown Pontypridd. Several people sort of joined the site after seeing an old Super 8 film I put up, and there's a few more archive things I found of my days from Pontypridd, so they'll be going up at some point. I just wanted to mention this. I've meant to mention this book before. I read it several years ago, and it's been around for ages, and this is To Dream of Freedom by Roy Clues. I would think you can get this in the new bookshop in Mill Street in Pontypridd. Milsom Street's in Bath, and worked in several bookshops there in my time. And this is all about the story of Mac and the Free Wales Army. So this is about Welsh radical politics, terrorist groups and nationalism in Wales in the 60s and 70s. And it's fascinating because it's a kind of hidden history. We don't hear much about it in Wales. There was a TV programme that was on BBC 4 a few years ago, which is brilliant, pops up now and again. And this is really great. So get along to your local Welsh bookshop and buy this if you're Welsh. You'll find it really, really interesting. Fantastic. fantastic stuff. And not that I'm particularly a nationalist, I'm not really. I love sort of being, you know, part of England as well. But we are a principality. And, you know, in Wales, why aren't we our own nation? It's been 700 years. There's talk from all sorts of areas of reparations around the world for different minorities, nationalities, what have you. What about Wales? There we go. I don't believe in reparations myself. I think the past is the past and it's done. So there's a couple of specials. Just talking about what I'm reading at the moment, which is a book I picked up the other day because I think it's gone out of print. And this one looks like it's got a print-on-demand shiny laminate cover. You probably can't see it in here. So it's quite dark this morning. I tend to shoot in natural light. So I've got a few lamps and things on. This is London City of Disappearances, edited by Ian Sinclair, which is a collection mostly of commission pieces. It's a big book all about London and lots of strange things and strange people in London. And it's absolutely brilliant. If you're at all interested in the city, I've been to London for 9 years. I used to go all the time. I must go again this year because it's been so long. Fantastic. All sorts of superb writers in here. This morning I've read pieces by Jeff Nuttall, Michael Moorcock, Will Self, Sarah Wise, you know, other people I've never read before. Really fantastic stuff. Excellent. So if you like that, Ian Sinclair, Alan Moore, psychogeography, weird London things, Peter Ackroyd, or even if you don't and you're new to reading about London, this is the business. So luckily it's a book I can pick up and put down because I've got to get on with Tyler's on the Sea, as I say. So what else have I been buying? Well, and acquiring quite a lot. So I thought I'd go reading the size of the books. That's the easiest way. So you have things stashed up here. And I've decided to reread Great Expectations, which I read in school at Hawthorne Comprehensive for my for what would now be a GCSE or whatever they're called. Then it was an O level. I'm not really a Dickens fan as such. I don't buy this thing. He was a great social realist. Zola to me was a social realist. The names are all just absurd, but I picked this up and I read one page at random and it really grabbed me. The writing was fantastic. And I got turned back onto it by, I've been reading a lot of Mark Fisher's work, the cultural historian, theorist, what have you, critic of late capitalism. I've referred to him in a lot of my videos recently. And he mentioned about class things and this. And I thought, God, that's really interesting. So I got this children's edition from Puffin because it was the most beautiful one. And it's unabridged. So isn't that lovely? So I'm going to give that a go and it'd be interesting to revisit it after a very, very long time. So I've been reading a few children's books recently, and I'm not somebody who does that. I tend to read adult books. I want adult content. But there's a certain period in children's books, probably sort of like 50s, 60s, 70s, that, you know, I've really enjoyed some things. So I've decided to get some more. There's Smudge the Cat wandering through in the background. And maybe we'll cut a few shots of Smudge in because, you know, she does what she likes. She's not one of these YouTube cats who performs, you know, just, you know, I want to be a star. She just does what she likes. She's a total anarchist. So anyway, back to the children's books and a few things I've got here. The Wolves of Willoughby Chase by Joan Akin. This is an alternative history novel. She wrote 11 of these, and I just want to do some format comparisons because, you know, I'm always on about formats, and I know I've got an obsession with it, but I'm a bookie guy, I can't help it. So that's a standard B format paperback. This is just to put them side by side. That's the format of that one. So it's a bit smaller, as you see. It's not as small as an A format pocketbook. It's a different format. And Penguin and Vintage, who are now effectively the same company, they do some children's classics in two formats which aren't quite a B, but they're bigger than an A. So, you know, I love this sort of thing. So sad, I know, but there you go. So that's great. When there's a Channel Tunnel and this is set in the 1830s, there you go. And wolves come into Britain. There's more to it than that, but that's going to be great. I've got some time travel books as well by children's female writers. There's a little thread I'm looking at the moment. And this is Penelope Farmer's Charlotte Sometimes, about a little girl who goes to boarding school. She doesn't know anybody, and she goes to bed in the evening, wakes up, and suddenly she's transported back in time to World War One. So that'll be interesting. And that's one of these odd little format books as well. In a standard B format, something I've meant to read for years, from the author of The Little Grey Rabbit, is Alison Utley's A Traveller in Time. Nice direct title, lovely cover as you can see, quite a chunky one that. Supposed to be absolutely brilliant, or in all the reference books. So being a bit of a science fiction expert, or so I'm told, I really should read this. So I'm looking forward to it. Isn't that fantastic looking? So, you know, great. So we see these sort of writers have the cardinal virtues of storytelling. You know, they do plot and character and what have you. And, you know, there's a lot to be said for getting back to basics sometimes. So also on the science fiction front, I picked up Galactic Patrol by E.E. Doc Smith, the inventor of the space opera. I would like an old sort of Granada Grafton one of these, but you can pick these up for £3 often in remainder shops because they don't seem to have done that well in the general trade. So I got that one in Bristol at the last bookshop, which I visited in one of my Bristol videos, so one of the early ones. So do check that out. Book Shopping in Bristol is called. So I'm looking forward to that. And he was also the guy, as I've said before, who invented the donut mix that allows your sugar to stick to your donuts. Quite a man. So then I mentioned Mark Fisher earlier on, and I've recently read his essays on the weird and the eerie and the difference between the two, and I think he nailed it. I think my thoughts about the difference between the weird and the eerie were really sort of mirrored in what he wrote. And there's good stuff in here about all sorts of people. There's things about Margaret Atwood, about Christopher Priest, who's a friend of mine and my favourite living novelist. Well, I've not talked about much yet, and you know, there's so much more to come on this channel. So that's going to happen. And H.G. Wells, Tim Powers, Fassbinder, Philip K. Dick, David Lynch, M.R. James, Brian Eno, Nigel Neal, Alan Garner, Stanley Kubrick, Tarkovsky, Christopher Nolan. God, it's all in there. It's great stuff. So that's really good. So a nice little introduction to his work if you've not read him before. He's a very clever chap. Sadly, took his own life a few years ago. Great shame. I've also read by him recently. I read this last weekend. His sort of latest book, posthumously published, Post-Capitalist Desire. Lovely little laminated boards. Demi sort of hardcover from Repeater, one of the publishers he helped us to found. And this is his transcripts of his lectures of the last course he taught at Goldsmiths to students doing visual culture. This is all about late capitalism. And he only did 5 lectures and then sadly took his own life. There are another 10 to do. But it's quite theoretical, but I absolutely found it riveting. Fantastic stuff. And really beautiful book as well, that. So I say he's been a big guy for me recently. Somebody I watch sometimes on YouTube who's quite a controversial figure is Simon Webb. And Simon Webb's a historian, and he occasionally writes sort of pulp western novels and lives in London. And he has a channel called History Debunked. Now, a lot of people say Simon is horribly right-wing, but he's a historian. He does have certain fixations on aspects of race and culture and what have you. But what he's really good at, he is good at looking at history that we think we know and actually pulling out the actual facts, what actually happened, the actual detail, and references it and sourcing it. So I've watched some of his things, and he's very skeptical about COVID, for example, which I'm not, as I completely disagree with him now. I don't always agree with him. And he's got a huge number of followers. But a while ago he mentioned he'd written this book, The Origin of Wizards, Witches and Fairies. And he says himself he's not a literary writer. This is published by Pen and Sword, or a history publisher. They tend to stay in hardcover, these books. And he's written all sorts of interesting historical things. He did a thing about, you know, the suffragettes' links with fascism, things like that. So he picks on things which, you know, which you don't hear much about, and that's very interesting. He wrote a book about how steampunk was actually very like the Victorian sort of era, which I haven't read yet. I'm going to read that and critique that at some point because I'm not so certain myself. And this is literally, as it says, the origins of wizards, witches and fairies. And he looks at European folklore, archaeology, and how it feeds into things like Father Christmas and all sorts of stuff. I could talk about this for ages. Very straightforward style. He says himself he's not the world's greatest stylist, but it's very straightforward. But he's very good at constructing a Socratic argument, bringing in evidence, and I think everybody would like this. And it does show that really in the UK and much of Europe we still do a lot of things which are very ancient traditions and folklore around these things. And as somebody who has returned a bit to sort of mid-80s post-Tolkien sort of fantasy, British fantasy from the period, the sort of 50s, 60s, 70s, early 80s. I found this enormously interesting, very, very good. So get that if you can, if you're interested. It's got some great pictures, and he links the pictures to the text very well. They're not just there for the sake of it. So that's that. That's a bit of history. Science fiction, as everybody knows who watches the channel, I'm a huge science fiction fan. I've written a book about it. I theorise about it a lot. I know lots of writers and what have you, and I've been a fan, you know, for like 50 years. And I don't really like film and TV SF very much, with some exceptions. I'm more about literary SF, written books. And I am kind of in despair about the state of SF publishing at the moment. If you're interested in that, if you look at a video I made a couple of weeks ago about how Golanc's masterworks for the Golden Age are mostly not Golden Age. So I think there's a lot of bad publishing going on. But I'm going to praise Golanc here because they produced the new book by Adam Roberts, which is called The This. And I always find Adam's stuff really, really good. And it says, "The This is the hottest new frontier in social media. It's definitely not a cult." And it goes on about this new social media development. And Adam's always really good. He's really witty. He can be very serious. What I love about him is he's only done one series and it's 2 books long. And I suspect he was talked into that by Golanc. He does a different idea every time. And throughout his career, he's covering all the classic tropes of SF. And he's doing new things as well. And he's written about 20 odd novels and lots of parodies and satires. Like he wrote a book called The Dragon with the Girl Tattoo, for example. And he's a fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, and his stuff is great. He doesn't always nail it for me, but as his career's gone on, he's got better and better. And as it says on the back flap there, a smart and ingenious writer, Christopher Priest. So this will be one of the few hardcover SF novels I buy this year that is published this year. I haven't read his last one yet, so I've got to get around to this, because I've got a huge pile of things. But he's always reliable, so it's great stuff. So I'm really glad to get that, and a beautiful book as well. What else do we have? Well, I'm moving towards the end of my first pile. Then there's another pile. So there's 20 of these. And again, Mark Fisher. This is K-Punk, huge trade paperback of interviews and blog material that he did. I have read some of this at work in lunch hours and what have you. And it covers all sorts of things. And because I'm a bit obsessed with Fisher at the moment, next week I've got a video coming up which looks at what modernism is, what postmodernism is, and then looking at his writing particularly about music with reference to the song Ghosts by Japan. This is a half-hour video, so it's quite in depth, but I set up the explanations of the context first, and I'm wandering around Bristol doing it. And let's get some more light on there. And this is great stuff. Subjects he covers, books, film and television, writing on music, political writing, interviews, and some reflections, and an unfinished work called Acid Communism. Great stuff. Another one to pick up and down. You could also hit a burglar over the head with it, because it's massive, 25 notes, but great stuff. So that's one I'll be dipping into for months and months to come. Another similar book I bought recently is this fantastically beautiful anthology. I've covered this in archival wrap, as you'll see, so it might glare a bit. It's an anthology of the best British and Irish nature writing, edited by a guy called Patrick Barkham, who's written a very good book about badgers. And this is The Wild Isles. And The Wild Isles is published by Head of Zeus, one of the finest trade publishers of the last few years. I love their books. I think they're doing a fantastic job. Well done, Head of Zeus. They've got an SF imprint called Ad Astra, to the stars, from, of course, the RAF motto. Per ardua ad astra, through difficulty to the stars, as quoted in The Man Who Fell to Earth. There's that wonderful bit where Rip Torn, who's playing Nathan Bryce, quotes it at David Bowie playing Thomas Jerome Newton, and he thinks Bowie will know it because Newton is supposedly English and he doesn't know it. So it's a bit of a giveaway. So there you go. But, moving off David Bowie and back onto this book, as you see, lovely, lovely cover. This is a huge anthology. This came out back in, where are we, 22, isn't it? Back in late 2020, and we had a pile of it where I work, and it didn't do too well. It's a shame because the pandemic kind of hit it, and it's gradually sold through. And I think I had the last but one copy, because I picked it up one day and I was looking at it, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm just going to read you some of the contributors who are in this. So I'm just going to flash the jacket at you, and you should be able to hear me because I've got my mic on. So sort of examples, it's thematic. So for example, in Birds, there's Gilbert White, J.A. Baker. There's Mavericks and Underdogs, so there's Barry Hines' Kestrel for a Knave, Kes, so there's some fiction in here as well. There's Fields and Farming with Ronald Blythe, Kenneth Alsop, James Rebanks, contemporary name, Tim D, who's a contemporary name. So there's old things and there's new things. There's a section on the Four Seasons with Edward Thomas, Laurie Lee, other people I've not heard of, which is good because it's good to discover new people. And sections on moors, childhoods, woods, swimming, islands, coastlands, nature cures, urban nature, discomfort, dystopia and death, future of nature, the joy of nature, and some other names in here: Nan Shepherd, Thomas Hardy, Dorothy Wordsworth, John Clare, Jay Griffiths, Chris Packham, Kenneth Graham, John Fowles, Robert Macfarlane, Roger Deakin, Henry Williamson, Gavin Maxwell. It's just astonishing of the people in here. Adam Nicholson, John Clare again, Helen MacDonald, Richard Maybe, Cunnan Jones, marvellous Welsh writer who writes very pitiless novels about nature and things in North Wales, Richard Jeffries, Virginia Woolf. You know, it's just absolutely fantastic. And again, you can pick it up bits and pieces and thematically arranged, and there's fiction and non-fiction in there. And I'm just going to show you the spine because it's got some beautiful embossing on there. Isn't that lovely? So that'll be out in paperback later this year, I think. So watch out for that, but try and get a hardcover if you can, because it's really, really beautiful, as you see. So that's another anthology. So a few anthologies here, things you can just pick up and down. Book I mentioned a while ago in one of my Bristol videos, and I've mentioned it, I think, in my talks about gulls relating to Nicholas Royal and Stephen Gregory. The gull has become a kind of totemic bird for me. To me, it's the totemic bird of late capitalism. We see them everywhere. People say they're pests, you know, and what have you, and they're everywhere and stuff. But gulls are like us. They've adapted. They're survivors. And this is Tindy's Landfill, which is a fantastic book from Little Toller. It is out of print now, but it's still out there in the bookshops. And it talks about how all the rubbish we throw away and what have you, and what a great job gulls do, and it's all about gulls and stuff, and it's very wide-ranging and absolutely gorgeous. And you've got to get these Little Toller monographs when you can, because they're, you know, they're hardcovers. The paperbacks are nice, but the hardcovers are much, much better. So so that's my latest gull book. So I've got a bit of a gull thing going on. So if you don't like them, think again. They do great things for the environment. They're not just pests. So horror, revisiting an old favourite, William Hope Hodgson. This is The Weird Tales of William Hope Hodgson from British Library. This came out a few years ago. I decided I didn't have enough Hodgson in my collection. This is short stories. He mostly sort of worked as a sailor, lots of sea stories. He was like a British seafaring H.P. Lovecraft. He was killed in World War One. Really, really great stuff. He wrote an amazing novel called The House on the Borderland, which, if you like things like Lovecraft and Akin, is really, really good. And it's about a guy who lives in this rambling house by the side of this dimensional pit, and these beings called the swine things come out of it, and it's fantastic, really lurid and poppy, brilliant, love it. And they do a whole range of these. They do lots of anthologies. They're a bit sort of spotty, but the books devoted to individual writers are fantastic. So William Hope Hodgson, The Weird Tales of, and I sell loads of this, loads of it, because at the moment horror fans, they're getting fed up with Stephen King and Lovecraft, and they're moving outward. They're looking into the names they don't know, and that's great stuff, because it's often a very conservative field of the readership, horror and mass market. People are reading Stephen King. Get out there, guys, read something different. This is a little book I picked up for £3 in second-hand bookshop in St Nicholas Market in Bristol. This is Calabash by Christopher Fowler. This will please my friend Tim. It's out of print, B format, and it's got its own jacket. Look at that. It's got a different cover underneath, and this is kind of mainstream novel with fantasy elements. Christopher Fowler, really good little writer. I did an event with Chris in the bookshop I work in about 5 years ago, and I was doing a lot of events then, loads. I was doing about one a week, loads of writers down, and it was a really amazing night because he could talk about anything for hours. What a raconteur. And people come up to me in the street and they say, do you remember that Christopher Fowler night? That was fantastic. It's the one that probably affected people the most. We had a packed basement with about 50 people, and you know, they just loved it. And he's a cult figure, really. So great stuff. So I've not read that one, so I'm looking forward to that. Something I was given, or got free rather, from work. Let me just stabilize this. This is relatively new in paperback. This is The Manning Tree Witches by a poet called A.K. Blakemore, and it won the Desmond Elliott Prize, which is a prize for first novel in 2021. Did well in hardcover, and this is about women in the age of, you know, the witch burnings in in England is set in 1643, and Matthew Hopkins, the Witchfinder General, who is a real person who used to go around Essex burning people, saying they were witches, horrible man. And of course, there's the famous film Witchfinder General, Vincent Price and Ian Ogilvy, which is in the top unholy 3 of folk horror. So this is sort of, I guess it's a quasi-feminist take on it, you could say. I've read a bit of it. The prose is very mannered, but very good. So we'll see. So I got that for nothing. So that's something to try and plug me into the contemporary a bit more. Something I got very cheap online because it was in an offer through a third party on Amazon, was this, Remagodden's Black Narcissus in Virago Modern Classics, laminated boards, demi. And Remagodden, or is it Rumour? I think it's Rumour, isn't it? Because the singer Rumour calls herself after her. And oh gosh, the singer Rumour. Don't start me on her. What a voice. What a babe. Anyway, so before it goes any further, I am completely in love with her, as you can tell. So I've not read this. This is the one about the nuns in the Himalayas. It's the famous Pressburger and Powell film, which always looks amazing. I read one of her children's books when I was about 10 called The Didakoi, which I've actually reordered at work, so I want to read it again. It's a charming little story about a little girl who's half Romany. A really fantastic story. And I thought I should read this because I think it's a Du Maurier type thing. And it's one of those books, I want to know what happens in it. I get the feeling that not much happens from what I know, but I'm intrigued, so we'll see. Okay, so we're getting through it, only about another 3 or 4 books to look at. So somebody I did a video about a while ago is Nicholas Royal. This is Nicholas Royal, who was born in 1963, not the Nicholas Royal who was born in 1957. If you want to know about that, watch the video on the channel. This is The Dummy, which is and Other Uncanny Stories. This is published by rather nice Irish small press, whose name I can't read on the spine because I've got it bagged. And I do like Nicholas's stuff, and we've been in touch. He's a great guy. So I'm looking forward to that because that looks fantastic. And I've not read any of his shorts for a while. Also on the horror front, I've got Eugene Thacker's In the Dust of This Planet, The Horror of Philosophy, Volume 1. This is the first part of 3, and I'll see how I get on with this, from Zero Books, who do some great sort of philosophy and political commentary. They've done great rock and roll books on Bowie and the Stranglers. They're an amazing publisher. Mark Fisher was involved with this. And this is about how the sort of idea behind this is the horror is popular and disaster films and what have you, and all sorts of, you know, apocalyptic things are popular because they reflect the uncertainty in our contemporary world. So I'm looking forward to that. So we'll see about that. If it's good, we'll do volumes 2 and 3, but we'll have to find out. One more very sort of academic thing. This is Schizostructuralism by my good friend Daniel Bristow, who's a Lacanian psychoanalyst, used to work with me a few years ago. He still works as a bookseller. He mostly practices psychoanalysis in the week. He lives at the side of the country now, so sadly we don't see each other much. And this is, it's subtitled Divisions in Structure, Surface, Temporality and Class. And he did send me a PDF of this, and it's just laminated boards. It's quite slim, serious book about all sorts of theoretical stuff, topology in psychoanalysis. So that's going to really stretch me, but that's for when I'm in the mood to be stretched, and then I can talk to Dan in the pub about it, because, you know, you go to the pub with Dan and it's great fun. He's a brilliant guy. And you know, you have a few pints as you do with any of your mates, you know, but you end up talking about the most serious out there subjects, but it's so stimulating, brilliant stuff. So there you go. And Dan's written all sorts of things. He's a great guy. So if you're in the sort of Cambridgeshire area and you need a Lacanian psychoanalyst, look up Daniel Bristow because he'll sort you out. So finally, something which I'm really pleased to have, which came out last year and I missed it. And, you know, it's one of those things that, you know, even booksellers miss stuff because we don't get printed catalogues in the same way we used to. And printed catalogues are the best thing. This is a American Collins book, published, you know, distributed by Collins in the UK, by Gianrico Carafilio, who I've done a video about, who is my favourite Italian crime writer. Now, I'm a bit of a nut for Italian crime, especially the stuff that people don't know about. Never mind Inspector Montalbano, never mind that. You know, never mind the popular stuff. The stuff which is more underground, the stuff which is popular in Italy is the great stuff. And Carafilio is one of them. And this is his first mainstream novel to be published in English. He writes crime novels and mainstream novels, and he's got this wonderful light and shade, great prose style. And this is a mainstream novel about a man spending time with his son in Marseille. And it's a beautiful jacket, as you see, and it's a nice slim novella. So I'm really looking forward to this, because Jean Rico is one of my contemporary literary idols. And if you look on my channel, you'll see in the crime playlist, the noir hard-boiled existential is called. There's a video about him. Look him up. He really is a cut above. He redefined the legal thriller and turned it from a pulpy sort of Grisham-esque thing into art. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. This is Outlaw Bookseller signing out for now.